Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 8 deck lists for a winner case event that took place in Ohio. 56 players, and the really exciting thing about this one is that this is absolutely the most diverse set of top 8 deck lists that I have personally seen across all the deck lists that I have covered. We've got 7 different ink combinations, with only one being a repeat, so lots to look at today. Couple of bits of admin first. First of all, this event took place on January 13th, so I'm very late on reporting on this. I do have a reason, which I would like to share with you all today. I have recently looked into the Well of Temptation. I failed my saving throw, and I started playing Baldur's Gate 3. It's a tough time for all of us, I know. Will I be able to stay consistent? Will I be able to pull myself away from it? Will I ever beat the harpies that are luring the tiefling into the lake right at the beginning of the game? These are the questions, but nonetheless, I apologise. I have been distracted. I've also been making D&D Lorcana D&D maps. That's another well that I've fallen all the way into at the moment. Expect D&D Lorcana content on the channel at some point. Not days, weeks, potentially months, hopefully weeks. So there's that. Also, I recently was invited to participate on the Citizens of Lorcana podcast, which will be linked down below. Here's a short clip of that. To the point where the one and only time I've ever been to America was to play Yu-Gi-Oh! I flew to California when I was 18 for SJC California, a huge event. We flew there on the Wednesday. I got terribly, terribly sick, like one of the sickest I've ever been in my life, and spent the Wednesday night, Thursday, and Friday in the hotel while the 3 guys I with went off and explored California. I didn't get to do any of that. I recovered just enough on the Saturday to go to a leisure centre, play card games all weekend, and flew home.
Oh, that's terrible.
There's just one story, but yeah, card games really were a big part of my teenage years. So please do go check out the full thing. Show some love to Citizens of Lorcana. I'm very, very grateful that they had me on. Rep your villain in the comments. Let's see the love. And the other thing to mention is this is the second time I am recording this entire video. I am saving you from bad audio. Insert bad audio. We got 1 ruby amethyst, and overall we've got 7 different ink combinations, with only 1 being a repeat. So I'm excited for that. Hopefully this will be a good video. Yes, I am saving you from that. So a little annoyed to be having to do all of this again. So hit the like button for me. If you're someone that sometimes hits the like button, make that special effort for your boy to say thank you, Baker, for not subjecting us to bad audio. Last thing to mention, the last couple of top 8 deck list videos have been a little longer than I wanted to be. I've come to the decision that I don't need to always break every single little thing down. I do want to be beginner friendly, and I definitely think the first month, maybe even 6 weeks after a new set, I will continue to always re-establish a card's purpose and what it does. But I think past that point, there are certain things that you will know by this point. You don't need me to say that the reason it's good to run a 1/3/1 drop is because there are teeth and ambitions and let the storm rage on in format. Of course, some things I'll still dissect a little more, but I'm going to try and be a bit more casual about it and try and shorten the length of these videos. But give me feedback for that. If that ends up being a bad decision, let me know. If it's a good decision, hit the like button for me. Let me see it. But anyway, that's crack on. We have a top 4 prize split. The first deck we're going to look at was piloted by Alex. We've got some Amber, Emerald, Greenfasa, a deck that is rising in popularity. I think a lot of the credit goes to Alphos for that, who is another Lorcana content creator. I've only discovered them recently, and I'm already a huge fan. They have come very far very quickly, and will probably go to the moon. They're very articulate. They really break down decks well. They seem that this deck is their creation. Well, there were probably people playing something like this before them. You never know if you're the first to do something, but it's certainly the first to bring it to mainstream knowledge. And the ladder has reflected that, because this has been quite popular, and definitely taking advantage again of something that we've said a few times, that just not enough respect being given to evasives. Stylish Surfer Mini has been allowed to get away with far too much for far too long. I mean, Crab became a bit of an answer in Ruby Amethyst decks because you could boost your own Stylish Surfer to deal with theirs. But other than that, like if you didn't have a way to deal with Mini through your own evasive, then you were relying on Dragon's Fire if you play them, and if not, getting lucky with your Tremaine hit or Be Prepared. So there has been a rise slightly in cards to combat evasive, and I think this deck has come along just at the point where that was happening, and it's now going to happen even more. We're starting to see fidgets in Ruby and more things like Jafar Al Vizier and Cruella de Vil. So I think this deck, while good, has come along right before people are going to start being more prepared for evasive, and when that happens, I'm not sure how long it survives. Maybe it does because Mufasa is inherently good. But let's take a look. We've got a 4/4 line of Stitch and Rockstar Stitch for those adoring fans and high quest pressure. We've got a 4/4 line of the Queen, which can also help manipulate onboard strength, which is good in any situation, but also works well with one of our combo pieces here, which we'll look at in just a second. 4 copies of Simba to be a bodyguarder. And then we've got Pain and Panic, which is always a delight to see. They popped up right at the beginning of the format at a tournament in Liverpool. Put in some work, and here they are again. Pain being the 2 cost and Panic being the 3, so you get a nice curve there. Pain with that 4 willpower is quite big and bulky and sticks around, and yeah, if his strength becomes 5 or more, then he gets +2 willpower, so you can work this with your Queen. That's a way of manipulating that, but also just the Panic here, who if you put him down, any character will gain +2, but a Pain in particular will gain +4, so you on your curve 2, put down Pain, on 3 put down Panic, he gains the strength, and then you are questing for 3, and you're big and bulky. Like, there's not many cards that can answer that by turn 3, so we love to see it. Also, it's worth mentioning that even if you're not using Panic with Pain, just the +2 to strength can be a math fix that changes a lot. It makes your 1 drops that hit that little bit harder, hitting 4, which again, even hitting 3 is like really a good thing in the early game, so 4 is obviously even better. If you're in any sort of mirror, or if you're against an aggro deck and you were able to get your Simba down on 2 in response to theirs on 2, or the other way around, then Panic can put you above so that you can take out their Simba with yours, and then hopefully your 1 drop can deal with that Maleficent or Lilo that they put down. And again, just a math fixer in general, which is going to help your characters come into range of taking out your target. So don't forget that this doesn't have to be used with Pain for value. Just the +2 is pretty good. So these 2 creating hot, and again, Panic questing for 2. We've got Doc here lowering the cost of characters, allowing us to get more out of our turn, and of course opens up to a really nice turn 3 Doc, turn 4 Mufasa curve, or our other 5 drop, which is Ray, but we'll get there. We've got Hades here for recycling of our key characters, just anything we want to see, and there's lots of things here that are nice to recycle. Cards that we haven't got to yet, but lots here to recycle with Hades, and then he can recycle himself against discard decks as well to make sure keep you having cards. Rapunzel here for that card draw. Obviously, we've got Tinkerbell here as one of our first evasive characters in this particular package, and don't knock the pixie dust when you play this character. Chosen character gains evasive this turn. If you're against evasive, like again, quite commonly if you're against Ruby on turn 3, if they put down the Stylish Surfer, and on your turn 3 you were able to put down something that's got at least 3 strength, then just going turn 4 Tinkerbell and giving that character that didn't have evasive now has evasive and can go into the Stylish Surfer mini or a number of things. So the pixie dust as well, something to not forget. But yeah, just an evasive 2/3. Mufasa the big man, really strong. Like more and more as the meta has developed, people are realizing like this is just a really good card, especially because he plays well into RA Control, which is the top decker format. Being able to replace himself, he quests big, he hits the magic number in 3, you can get him down by 4 working with Doc. So yeah, Mufasa a really strong card. We've also got Ray here as our next evasive, and another 5 drop we can potentially get down on turn 4. Questing for 3 is absolutely huge. 3/3 line means hopefully any evasive character that they do have to challenge into Ray, hopefully you're also taking them out in return, unless it's Goofy. Goofy is an MVP of this format at the moment, while evasive is still so strong. But yeah, because he does fall into that 3 range, he can just get smashed. It doesn't take a whole lot to get off a Tink plus Let the Storm Rage On, or a Strength or a Raging Fire with 3 characters on board. So I don't think he sticks around all the time, but when he does, he's going to quest big. Again, I think this falls into the category of now that people are going to respect evasives more, I don't know how long this deck stays at the top. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, definitely contributes towards this deck, which is wanting to take advantage of a lack of evasive in format. And even if evasive does grow, maybe it's just still aggro enough to get the job done. Talked about Stitch, we've got Genie here, obviously to bounce characters back to our opponent's hand. He's another evasive character. He's got a nice 3/4 stat line, meaning that without hard removal, if they do have evasive answers, not many are hitting for 4 unless they're playing Tigger, or they need a combination of challenge plus some steel chip damage. But yeah, a little harder to remove even if they do have evasive, and yeah, the disappear ability being able to just offset our opponent's tempo. We've got 3 Stitches here for the card draw, and then 3 Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo as our only non-character card. No Lanterns in here, which I think is fair. I'm still playing Lanterns in my Ruby Mufasa, but I can see that like Steadfast made a good argument for cutting them, and I can see that POV. But Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo getting a lot of value here. You can recycle things like your Hades, your Rapunzel, the Genie to be able to bounce an extra card back to their hands. You can cheat out big characters, especially if you're able to get a turn 2 shift into the 5-cost Queen. Then you get a turn 2 Mufasa or a turn 2 Rey. And again, just lots of combinations that we can do here. So yeah, really good deck, really strong deck. I think as long as people do respond to evasive in the next couple of weeks, as I think they will and hope they will, then this deck probably gets a little worse. It's still an aggro deck that can get the job done. I still personally prefer the Ruby combination. But yeah, still a good deck, really strong. Big thanks to Alphos to bringing it to mainstream attention. Yeah, congratulations to Alex for taking it to top 4. Next up, we've got Reed, which I hope I'm saying right, with some Amethyst Steel Control, a deck, another one that's gaining a lot of popularity lately. I think like this is probably the highest skill tier deck because it can deal with so much, and like there's so many different lines of play. It's not as streamlined as I feel a lot of decks are, with an exception being like Steel Amber Songs. I think is a lot more like it's a high skill. I'm not saying Ruby Amethyst isn't a skilled deck, it is, but your moves tend to be more linear. I think it's probably the closest to what I'm trying to say. It's like you don't have many lines, you just do until you get to a certain turn. But I feel like right from the beginning, this deck has a lot of choices to make, and really strong. We've got 4 Olaf to obviously be an early quester and contribute towards our bounce stuff. In that vein, we've got 4 Snake, 4 Fox for the bouncy things, and Goat and Rabbit to be the target of said bouncy things, hopefully to get some extra lore and some extra draw. Maleficent for the draw as well. Prince Eric, a really nice 2-drop to put down. Again, it's another case of if you miss your 1-drop on turns 1 or 2, then you're not putting it down anything until turn 3. So it's nice to have the extra character in that 2 slot, and again, having Challenger 3 means he takes out a lot of the format. Maleficent for the draw, I think I've said. 2 Benja, respecting the meta is very item heavy with flutes and spell books, especially against spell books. You could, like against Ruby Amethyst, you can make the game go longer and stop them bouncing, zooming ahead so much. Of course, they've got Goat, but yeah, Benja, really good card at the moment. 3 copies of Tiny Tactician Tink, which I like to see, means our big Tink can come in out of nowhere with that shift on 4, or even if it's after 4, being able to immediately put down Tink and then immediately challenge and get full value from her 2 abilities is brilliant. We talked about the Goat and the Rabbit. We've got Beast here, one of the best cards in the game. We wanting that additional draw when he has no damage counters on him, but if he does have damage on him, then having a 7/5 stat line is pretty cool. He takes out pretty much everything in format except for Ursula and Eudora. The more recently in the meta. 3 copies of Yzma to either remove a target if we really need to, but preferably we're bouncing our own characters back, drawing cards, and if it's bounce characters, we benefit even more. We mentioned the Tink, really strong. 4/5 stat line is respectable. We can shift in this deck, and yeah, the spread damage plus the Puny Pirate, 2 damage we get for banishing something, contributing towards Steel's theme of just chipping things away. 2 Ursa, nice big and bulky, good against opposing Steel decks because she's so bulky. She really demands hard removal. Quest for 3 is huge, and getting to draw cards and deny lore is important. Elsa here as another big quester, questing for 3. 4/6 is a really nice stat line. Generally, hard removal or Maui is what you need to deal with an Elsa, but again, her deep freeze is hopefully going to offset our opponent and slow them down to bring us ahead in the game. 3 copies of Smash, I'm glad to see. I think it's really important to immediately immediately remove the likes of Arthurs, Docks, and Aerials. Really upsets their tempo and just gives you a strong advantage right from the beginning of the game if you're able to respond to those 3-cost characters. 3 copies of Friends on the other side for the card draw. Let the Storm Rage on. I don't know where that came from, but I'm keeping it in. Let the Storm Rage on for that chip damage and to draw a card. Of course, we can sing it and then grab your swords, again contributing towards our chip damage to just flood our opponent's board with chip and just keep it under control. And of course, singing it's great. So yeah, fantastic list. We see no blue fairy in this particular variant, but looks really good. So congratulations to Reed. Next up, our lone Ruby Amethyst deck. We've got, piloted by Matthew, we've got 7 1-drops, so we really want a nice, we really want to see that 1-drop on turn 1. If all goes terribly, then we do have 3 copies of Kuzco, or we can just do this as a curve if we don't want to, if we don't hit the snake. But yeah, Kuzco helping us to make sure we do get characters down early, and the fact he replaces himself when he's banished, yeah, lets us maintain tempo. We've got the 4-4 line of Snake and Fox, 4 Goat, 4 Rabbit. We see 2 Crab in here to boost our characters, works really well with our 1-drops, and particularly with Stylish Surfer Mini to combat the opposing Surfer Minis. 4 Maleficent for the draw, 4 Maui, nice response rush character, 4 Tremaine for that removal, 3 copies of Ursula, as we've talked about. Teeth and Ambition's really strong going into aggro, really good against Steel Amber Songs to offset their Ballroom Sensation or their Night in Training. Taking an early shift away from them can be really important, or it can just be the last bit of chip damage that you need. It's another way of dealing with opposing evasive. Sometimes the 1 strength of Mini is enough to challenge into one of their evasive characters like Tinkerbell or something, if you can then Teeth and Ambitions to finish the job. Friends for the draw, be prepared for the board wipe, and just 1 copy of Sorcerer's Spellbook to occasionally, especially if they're not playing item removal, then keeps us that turn ahead in the lore race. So yeah, tried and tested Ruby Amethyst. No Monstrous Dragon, worth noting, but that's becoming a more popular decision. To a lot of players just saying, no, I'm sorry, turn 9 is just that bit too late. Most games are over by then. Some get like maybe 2 out of 5 games you'll be glad you had Counter Maleficent Dragon. And I say this as someone still playing 2 in my Ruby Amethyst lists, but I can see the argument for the complete cut and just like a really aggressive early game. So yeah, list that's good. Congratulations to Matthew. Next up in top 4, we've got some Steel, Sapphire, Pawp Control, Pawp Ping. I don't know what's the better name for it, you tell me. 3 copies of Jafar Royal Vizier as our as one of our 2-drops for the evasive, dealing with evasive. 3 Prince Eric to be another 2-drop and to help be a more combative deck so that we can keep opposing Amethyst decks particularly under control, or just anything that's only got 3 willpower. Stop them questing so much. 2 Mickeys to accelerate our Inkwell. We see no Winnie the Pooh in this list, and I do like, there was some discussion in the last top 8 where I said I think Winnie the Pooh is, I prefer Mickey to Winnie the Pooh. But in Steel, I can absolutely see the argument for going Winnie the Pooh instead, but we opted for Mickey here. But that's still fair enough in my book. Mickey's still great. 2 copies of Benja to remove those items. We do see 4 copies of Belle. Read a book is another way we can flood our Inkwell, but really her main use, I believe, is my favourite part, becoming a 5 lore quester if you've got 10 or more cards in your Inkwell. So our ways of flooding the Inkwell, we've discussed Mickey. We've got Fishbone Quill later on in the list. We are running Whole New Worlds, so there are plenty of worlds where we can get to 10 and above. I've played a bit with the Sapphire Steel deck, but I didn't play with Belle, so I think it's important, if I give an opinion, I think it's important to say whether I feel it's enforced through a lot of experience or not. I've not done a lot of play testing with Belle, so opinion to be taken with a pinch of salt. But in my opinion, even though you really hopefully want to get to that 10 plus ink a lot, I still feel like there's probably 50% of your games where you just don't, and it's over before you get to that point. That's just the impression I would get, and I don't know if that's enough for me to want to personally include the Belle. But again, haven't tried her, so not a bedrock of experience, but just my initial impression. But if you're a player of this deck, please give me argument. If you play Belle, sing a song. If you don't play Belle and you agree, let me know. We've got 3 copies of Flaversham, nice big bulky 6, nice and cheap 4 cost, an Artificer letting us draw cards by banishing items, both when he comes into play and when he quests. Once again, we're only seeing 2 different item cards here, 4 counter both, so a total of 8 items, but people playing this deck saying this is all you need. Of course, some people are leaning to a higher count if they're going with Maurice's Workshop, etc. But a lot are saying, no, this is perfectly enough, and this is going to help us keep tempo. Maybe it helps us dig for the whole new world. Maybe it means we don't have to play the whole new world. So yeah, like Flavisham's fantastic. 3 copies of Nick Wilde to recycle the Porpsicles, and the fact he's got 4 willpower is relevant. He will survive a lot, and questing for 2 is big. Cogsworth, who has Ward, which is really strong, and of course giving resist 1 to all of our characters is going to help a lot against, especially Steel, going to really offset their chip cards, but against anything that's challenging, resist 1 is strong. Only 3 copies of Beast here for the addition, again, preferably additional card draw. Only 3. Maybe they only have 3. I need to be more respectful of that when I'm going through lists and assuming that counts should be higher, because like some people just might not have had them. But if availability was there, I would definitely run the 4th. 2 copies of Gaston, really aggressive quester. 6 is like a quite by turns 4 or 5 with Quill and Mickey, you can get this down by turn 4 or 5 easily. And questing for 3 is nice. It's a nice 4/4 stat line, and yeah, getting to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and just take whichever one you want is really strong. 4 copies of Tink, as we talked about. Hades for that removal. We are flooding their inkwell, but sometimes the downside to this is still fine. Some things just gotta go. 2 copies of Stout-Hearted Cinderella, nothing to shift onto here, but still a really strong card to put down. Resist 2, questing for 3. Singing Sword, not loads of songs, but enough that it'd probably come up every now and then. But yeah, Cinderella's really hard to get rid of if you don't have targeted removal. Nothing to Hide is our only 1 drop. At a 2 count, just scouting for information. Is it the right time for me to put down my Bell or my Beast? Whatever it is you value the most, maybe you want to bait the removal out first. Is it the right time to play my whole new world? Information is good. 3 copies of Smash, again, really happy to see this. Certain things just gotta go. 2 copies of Let It Go to also be removal, flooding the rink world, but we can sing it. Whole new world for the draw, Grubby Swords for the chip, and then Porpsicle letting us draw cards, but we can also heal. Obviously, we can recycle it with Nick Wilde, and the healing is not irrelevant. Sometimes it helps you keep characters alive a little bit longer, puts Beast back to full health so we can keep drawing extra cards. So yeah, and Fishbone Quill to flood that inkwell. So really, like, first few turns, we want to just be playing Mickey and Fishbone Quill, emptying our hand, and then into a whole new world with like 7 or 8 ink to play with. So yeah, deck is fantastic. Like you can tell just by how well it's performing recently, and well piloted obviously by Asaya. So congratulations to them. Moving into our top 8 now, we have Alexander with some Sleepy's rock songs. So we've got 4, 4, and 4 of the Cinderellas. The 1 drop having Singer 3, so we can sing our songs nice and cheap. The 2 drop having the Have Courage ability, so we can draw a card, discard a card. Whatever it is we're looking for in the early game, we really want to see an Ariel, or Rapunzel, or a Doc, or a whole new world. There's certain things we really want to get down early, so you can help us scout those out. We've talked about Stitches and Queens and Simbas. Ariel's going to help us find songs and sing Whole New World and Grab Your Swords on the cheap. Doc just at a 1 count to reduce character cost, just a 1 count as well as Rapunzel, which I think is fine. We are running the Beast and the Whole New World, so we don't have to be all in. Worth noting though, we are only playing 2 copies of Queen and 2 copies of Rockstar Stitch, so like the option to go either way. Yeah, fair enough, so that sounds good. Only 2 copies of Big Tink. I'd probably find room to make this the 4, to be honest. Like, I'd probably switch something here around. I'm not sure. I definitely would like the 4. We talked about Cinderella, and then let's do items first. We've got Sleepy's Flute, which is obviously going to let us tilt it whenever we play a song to gain some lore, and 2 copies of Lantern in here. Not something we're seeing regularly paired alongside Sleepy's Flute. So we've got 3 cards, like 2 Lanterns and 1 Doc to reduce character cost. So yeah, this deck trying to do a lot of things. But I am surprised to only see 2 Sleepy's Flute with such a big song package. The Grab Your Swords, the Whole New World, the Strength of a Raging Fire, the Let the Storm Rage On. This is all pretty standard. 2 World's Greatest Criminal Mind we talked about the other day. It's not common to see these because it doesn't have a lot of active targets in meta. The opposing Stout-Hearted Cinderella, of course, the Monstrous Dragon, and the Maui's in Ruby. Other than that, it doesn't have a lot of targets, but I feel probably more than anything, it's just knowing that you can go into the mirror and just immediately remove their Stout-Hearted Cinderella, which is probably enough to still warrant the space. But we're seeing 3 copies of Paint the Roses Red, which is up to 2 characters gain -1 strength this turn, which will come in handy occasionally. Occasionally that will matter a lot, but mostly it's just another song which replaces itself by drawing a card and can tilt our flute or power up our singing sword. I do feel like, again, we are all in on the Cinderella, so I do feel like I'd make room for a 3rd Sleepy's Flute. Personally, I'd probably cut 2 Lanterns here and go to the 3rd Flute, the 4th Beast if I had it, And then, yeah, I probably would want to go to 40. I think Big Tink's just that good, to be honest. But I haven't tried this particular list, so, and hey, it led Alexander to a top 8 finish, so yeah, congratulations to them. Next in top 8, we've got Thurston with some Amber Amethyst Bulky Aggro. We just try, like, I heard myself in my head say it before I said it. We're just trying to win the game as quick as we can. Like every other deck isn't trying to do that. But you get my point, because this deck doesn't want to go long. It's got nothing high end that's going to be able to combat the, like, the big thing, the big monsters of the format. It's just not gonna, it's not gonna compete. It just wants to go under them and win. So in that vein, we've got 4 Lilo, 4 Maleficent to be 1-drop aggressive questers. Also 4 Pascal here at a 1-drop, who will get evasive with other characters on board, and that's the point. We're extending as much as we can. 3 copies of LeFou. I'm waiting for the day that the loyal ability is relevant in any way, but this is not that day. Just an aggressive 2 quester, Simba to protect all these guys, Pinocchio the star attraction at a 3 count, again as a 3 lore quester, so just so much aggression here. We've also got 2 Arthur who can give us another spike in lore with his ability, but also just protects these characters by returning them to our hand. Madam in Fox also protects these characters by returning them to our hand, but can be a response card to our opposing board so that they can't always answer all of our characters, hopefully. Maleficent for the draw, Goat for the not for the gain of lore, but also 4 stat line is good. It will help you control the board a little more. 4 copies of Eudora gaining popularity, especially in Mufasa decks. But yeah, just deals like really good into Steel Amber Songs because she's big and bulky. It's going to take a lot to get her off the field. 4 Goofy and 4 Maximus, both as bodyguarders. Maximus also has support and slightly different stat lines, but again, just protecting our aggressive questers. And in that vein, we've got 4 copies of Just in Time that are going to allow us to get our 5 cost characters down cheap and early. So yeah, I'm not a huge Just in Time fan, but did well for Thurston. 2 copies of Befuddle, really good in the mirror, and even just against like a lot of things, Ruby Amethyst, if you put down their 1-drop, that slows them down a turn because they're not going turn 2 Madam Mim Snake. So yeah, Befuddle's really strong. Be our guest to find the key pieces and 4 friends on the other side for the draw. So yeah, a really aggressive bulky aggro deck. So congratulations to Thurston. And our last 2 decks are Sapphire, Ruby, Pawp Control, but slightly different variants. First off, we've got Gavin, who, first off, it's worth saying is playing a higher item count, only slightly. We see 2 copies of Eye of the Fates, which, again, additional item to feed all the cards that like items, but again, just to make sure that we're questing just that little bit more than our opponents each turn by giving them all 1 lore. We've got 4 Grand Martala, who, if they don't deal with, she will just sit there and keep questing, but if they do, it's accelerating our Inkwell even more. 4 copies of Noi with that 1-2 stat line, and if you've got an item down, they will gain ward and resist, making them really difficult to deal with, and questing for 2 is great. Judy Hops can remove your own items, but really I think this is more respecting the meta to get rid of the opposing Fishbone Quills, the Sleepy's Flutes, the spell books, that sort of thing. 2 copies of Belle. I've talked about Belle. We've talked about Flavisham and Nick Wilde. Maui here is a nice response card. Tremaine for the removal. Gaston for the drawing cards. Good stat line. Good amount of lore. Hades for the removal. We're all in on the Maleficents here. You see, as well as we're not playing any Mickey in this particular list. It's basically just Fishbone Quill, but I've just noticed we are also running 3 copies on 1 jump ahead. So yeah, it's realistic to me with it, like with this much, you should get going and get to this point enough to warrant the 4. Teeth and Ambitions we've talked about. Let it go, be prepared. Yeah, list looks really good. So congratulations to Gavin. And just to clarify, because I can already hear the comments, I know I literally just said that I don't think Belle is necessarily always worth it because you're not always getting to that 10 mark. And I've just said I think you're getting there enough to warrant the Maleficents. I think there's a big difference between Maleficent and Belle. Not just the 1 ink less of a requirement, but Maleficent is instant guaranteed effect. It's always getting used. Belle won't always, but yeah, just covering my bases. And the final list by Joseph, slightly different variants to Gavin's. We are running we're not running the Eye of the Fates, but we are running 1 copy of Scepter of Arendelle to be an additional 1-drop item. Nice cheap item to work with our item stuff. We're also running some 1-drops in this list. We're running 3 copies of Minnie Mouse, always classy. We're running 2 counts of Gaston, which can shift into our intellectual powerhouse. But also, like, Gaston was really great, popular last format, because 4-2 stat line is great on a 2 cost, but with the increase in Teeth and Ambitions and Let the Storm Rage on, just not consistently going to sit there that it was worth the spot. But we can shift here, so it's an additional reason to play him. And again, if they don't have or hit those chip cards, hitting for 4 is really strong, and it's going to keep your opponent's board under control to a degree. Cruella de Vil to be an evasive character to deal with those popular meta threats. Where everything else looks pretty much the same. Only 3 Maleficent. We're seeing the 2 Nothing to Hide here for that information scouting. Oh, we are seeing 2 copies of Mickey here for the ramp. But yeah, another strong look. Like Pawp with quickly it's become apparent that Sapphire Pawp works better with steel. At the beginning, it was Ruby Sapphire that everyone was playing, and very quickly it fell off completely. Like, you just didn't see it for a while. Then suddenly we're seeing it with steel, and now the Ruby variants are coming back out to play. So maybe that says to us that it was just a lack of pilots that was keeping them out, and it is still a strong deck. But yeah, congratulations to Joseph. To be fair, it's the only in combination that has 2 representation spots in this top 8, so that tells us something. But yeah, congratulations to Joseph. And that is it for the top 8 deck list for the No Limit Win a Case event. Yeah, once again, let me know in the comments if you're happy with this sort of pacing. Remember, I had to record this again and I saved you bad audio, so hit the like button for me. But thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new, please do subscribe for all things Lorcana, and we'll see you soon.